There are people who enter a room without saying a word. No noise, no show. Yet every eye turns toward them. Not because of their looks, not because of their status, but because of their presence, a kind of silence that commands caution. In an age where people compete for attention by shouting and showing off, there's a kind of danger that comes from composure, from self-mastery, from refusing to react as expected. People like that are hard to read. They are not easily swayed by praise, desire, or insult. And that's exactly what makes them dangerous. But not the destructive kind. It's a strength forged from inner discipline, from steadiness in the face of chaos. In this video, you'll see 7 behaviors, small but incredibly effective, that will make you not only appear formidable, but truly become someone who cannot be shaken. Not because you threaten anyone, but because you have no need to. 1. Do not react on impulse. Respond only when necessary. Many of us grew up believing that quick reactions were a sign of intelligence, courage, or strength. If someone insults us, we must strike back. If someone disrespects us, we must instantly prove our worth. If someone hurts us, we must retaliate to avoid being seen as weak. But the truth is, instinctive reaction is not strength, it is reflex. And reflex, though natural, is predictable, exploitable, and easily manipulated. The manipulator doesn't need to do much. They only need to press the right emotional button to drag you into a fight you never intended to choose. A truly grounded person doesn't react immediately. He notices the anger rising in his chest, feels the sting knocking on the door of his pride, but instead of letting emotion take over, he chooses to pause. Not out of fear, not out of weakness, but because he understands. Not every situation deserves his energy. People may speak irrationally, behave disrespectfully, or try to provoke you, but you don't have to walk into their trap. A reaction is a gift you can choose whether or not to give it. And sometimes, what unsettles others is not what you say, but what you don't. When you react on impulse, you're easily led. You might lash out, raise your voice, or even hurt someone, only to later regret giving emotion the steering wheel. But if you can pause for a beat, observe the rising wave within, you'll have the chance to respond. A response is a conscious act. A response is when you take in the full context, understand the other's intent, and choose a course that preserves your integrity. A response might be a few calm, direct words, a firm, silent stare. And sometimes, a response is doing absolutely nothing because you know it's not worth it. Epictetus once said, "Whoever angers you, masters you." Meaning, if you're easily provoked, easily shaken, you're handing control over to someone else. They push the button, you react. They prod, you explode. You're no longer in charge of your behavior. This is not just dangerous, it makes you vulnerable in relationships, in work, and in life. Emotional maturity means knowing not every feeling needs expression, not every word needs a reply, not every battle needs to be won. Practicing this isn't easy. It demands deep self-awareness. When someone says something harsh, your blood might rush to your face, your heart might race, your fists might clench, and your mind may scream for a comeback. But if you can catch that moment just for a few seconds and tell yourself, "I don't have to react right now," you've created space between emotion and action. That space is where you get to choose again, to stay silent, to walk away, to speak in a different tone, from a different state, calmer, more intentional. And you'll be surprised at what happens next. People begin to tread carefully around you, not because you're aggressive, but because you're unreadable. Not because you're cold, but because you remain calm when most would explode. They won't know what you're thinking or what you might do. Your silence unsettles them. Your composure makes them question their own behavior. And in a world where everyone rushes to react, the one who pauses to observe is the one who holds the real power. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have the power not to judge, and if you don't, you won't be harmed, you won't be forced." This doesn't mean accepting every injustice. It means learning to choose what deserves your voice, what deserves your energy, and what can be let go to preserve your inner peace. Because every time you stay calm, you not only protect yourself, you strengthen an invisible kind of power, the kind that makes you formidable without threatening anyone. 2. Seek no approval, and care not for being disliked. Deep down, we've all longed for approval. From childhood, we learn to crave the approving gaze of our parents, the praise of teachers, or the acceptance of friends. Society reinforced this by rewarding those who fit in, applauding those who please the crowd. But what we weren't taught is this: the more you live to be liked, the more you allow yourself to be led by others. And when you build your life around others' emotions, you are surrendering your autonomy. Those who live for approval are caught in a silent competition where the prize is acceptance and the price is freedom. They bend to others' expectations, trying not to be disliked, not to stir conflict, not to disappoint. But in trying to please everyone, they lose themselves. They live in anxiety, easily wounded by criticism and vulnerable to sweet manipulation. And when praise doesn't come, they feel empty, lost because their sense of worth is tied to others' gaze. A dangerous person in the best sense is one who doesn't need validation to feel valuable. He doesn't live to impress, nor tries to be liked. He does what is right, even when no one is watching. He walks his path even if misunderstood, even if criticized. That self-possession sets him apart, and that difference is what earns both admiration and caution, because no one knows what can shake him. No one can tempt him with flattery, and no one can twist his will with disapproval. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It's astonishing that we love ourselves more than others, yet care more about their opinions than our own." This cuts to the heart of it. Many live not by inner conviction, but as if performing for an invisible audience. They don't dare speak their truth, don't dare live their nature, fearing rejection, isolation, or being labeled strange. But the Stoic is unmoved by others' preferences. The Stoic is grounded in inner integrity. When you know you're doing what's right, you don't need permission to continue. Rejecting others' expectations doesn't mean you become rebellious or rude. It means you live by principle quietly, but firmly. You don't need to shout that you don't care what people think. You simply live in a way where each decision stems from reason, not from fear of judgment. Others may find you cold, distant, or even arrogant, but you understand. True freedom is not being loved by all. It's not needing to be loved to stay true. Freedom from the need for recognition is one of life's rarest freedoms. It doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from no longer being a slave to how others see you. You can fail without shame, succeed without pride, be misunderstood without explaining, and walk away in silence without feeling loss. When you reach that point, you're no longer easily swayed. Others no longer have emotional leverage over you. And what cannot be controlled will always be respected with caution. 3. Master your desires. Never let craving decide for you. In the modern world, everything seems designed to stimulate our desires. Sophisticated ads make you want more than you need. Social media creates the illusion that happiness comes from wealth, admiration, and indulgence. Recognition becomes a commodity. Attention becomes a form of currency. But in the middle of this storm, there are those who move slowly. They don't chase, they observe. and they don't let desire dictate their actions. That kind of person is what Stoic philosophy calls dangerous, not because they want to destroy anything, but because they need nothing to live in peace. Desire, if left unchecked, becomes an invisible leash that binds us to the external world. If you crave love, you become entangled in toxic relationships. If you hunger for money, you risk crossing moral boundaries to get it. If you seek praise, you might sacrifice your identity just to be accepted. All of it begins with something deceptively simple: I want. But the more you let want lead, the farther you drift from should. You stop acting based on what's right, and instead act based on what feels good. As Seneca warned, a poor man is not one who has little, but one who is never satisfied. Mastering desire doesn't mean killing all emotion or living a life of denial. It means knowing what's essential, what's fleeting, and what's merely the trickery of the mind. A strong person is not someone without desire, but someone who doesn't let desire rule. They may see a fast path to wealth, but walk away if it compromises their values. They may be drawn to something alluring, but stay grounded in self-control. They know every trap begins with something sweet, and that's exactly why they're cautious with sweetness. A practicing Stoic trains their will through small habits to resist desire. They choose purposeful discomfort over meaningless ease. They may say, I won't eat this today, not because I dislike it, but because I want to see if I can say no. They walk into the cold morning and choose a cold shower, not to punish themselves, but to affirm, I decide not my comfort. These seemingly simple acts build the foundation for a mind no longer governed by craving. And when you're no longer ruled by what feels good, you begin to act from reason, from principle, from depth. The one who can walk away from temptation is the one who truly draws attention. Because when the world sees that you don't need what they think you must need, they become curious. They wonder, what makes him unshakable? And they grow uneasy because they realize they can't control you. They can't tempt you with money, status, or lust. You become impenetrable. And what can't be penetrated always commands both respect and fear. Mastering desire doesn't make you dull, it gives you depth. You no longer need a flashy life to feel full. You find richness in the simple. You savor food not for its price, but for your presence. You work not for status, but because you believe in what you do. And while most of the world is led by what I want, you led by what is right become an outlier. In today's world, people often admire those who have everything, but in Stoic philosophy, the one most worthy of respect is not the one who has the most, but the one who can let go. The one you can't bribe, can't provoke, can't lure into compromise for fleeting pleasure that is the truly free person. And that freedom, born from no longer being enslaved by desire, is what makes you dangerous, not because you wield destructive power, but because you fear losing nothing, and the one who fears nothing cannot be controlled. 4. Stay silent when things turn chaotic. Silence is one of the most powerful forms of communication and one of the most underrated. In an age where everyone wants to speak, to react, to be seen, silence becomes a rarity. And because it's rare, it unsettles people. When everyone is in a frenzy but you remain calm, they don't know what's going on in your mind. Your silence becomes a blind spot. And in that blind spot, people feel unsafe because we fear what we can't predict. When everything around you spins into chaos, someone gets angry, voices rise, control slips away. Most people's instinct is to jump in. They think they need to speak up to defend their stance, to argue so they don't appear weak, to show emotion so they don't look afraid. But it's in those moments that the truly strong step back. Not to avoid, but to observe, not out of submission, but to maintain control. Because the more chaotic things become, the more vital it is that someone holds their stillness. And the one who can do that is usually not the one who controls others, but the one who controls themselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The closer a person comes to a calm mind, the closer they are to strength." This doesn't mean you should stay silent in every situation, but it reminds us, calmness is not passive, it's a conscious choice. When you stay silent amid the storm, you're not just controlling your words, you're mastering your emotions, your thinking, your clarity. While others are swept up in the emotional tide, you remain above it where reason still breathes. Silence is where you evaluate, where you see what really matters and what's just noise. In an argument, the silent one makes the fewest mistakes. In a crisis, the composed one is most likely to lead. And in a world that equates noise with power, silence becomes a form of quiet resistance, not destructive, but unyielding. It's a declaration, "I won't play your game." Silence is also strategy. It makes others reveal more, contradict themselves, and sometimes walk into their own traps. The quick-tempered often unravel in front of someone who doesn't react. They speak too much. They expose their weakness. They burn themselves out trying to provoke you while you stand still, like a stone in the storm, unmoved by wind or screaming. Here's the thing. You can't fake this kind of silence. Someone pretending to be calm while boiling inside will be exposed quickly. Only those who've truly trained their inner stillness can sustain it with grace. That's why silence in chaos feels dangerous, not because you threaten anyone, but because you're the only one who isn't threatened. You don't need words to appear strong. Your calm presence alone makes others take notice. And that presence gives you a power far greater than shouting ever could. In Stoic philosophy, the wise do not argue needlessly. They do not react to every attack. They choose when to speak and sometimes choose not to. Not because they lack answers, but because not every question deserves one. They remain quiet, not from helplessness, but from inner strength, because they don't need to shout to be heard. They know their true worth isn't in their words, but in their bearing, their presence, and their ability to stay whole in situations where others unravel. When you remain silent in chaos, you're not just protecting yourself from error, you're offering others a place to anchor. In that silence, you're not just present, you command the room. And when a person can command a room through stillness alone, they need nothing else to be seen as dangerous. 5. Observe, don't perform. There's a kind of presence that needs no announcement, no display. It's the presence of someone who's observing quietly, deeply, and without seeking attention. In a crowded room, you'll notice someone always in the spotlight. They speak often, gesture boldly, constantly trying to prove they know something, can do something. But if you pay close attention, there's someone outside that buzz, not trying to stand out, not inserting themselves into every conversation, not flaunting anything. That person isn't performing, they're observing. And it's that silence that draws attention. In a performance-driven society, where people act as if they're trapped on an endless stage online, and of someone who refuses to join the play becomes a quiet form of rebellion. When everyone's building an image, the one who builds none stands apart. While others are trying to tell their story, you choose to observe the world. And that observation isn't apathy, it's an active, aware form of presence, stripped of theatrics. You don't need to constantly display emotion, assert opinions, or affirm your identity because you understand. The one who knows who they are has no need to appear. The one who chooses to observe rather than perform commands the room through stillness. He doesn't compete for the spotlight, yet others' eyes land on him not because he draws them in, but because he doesn't try. In a world flooded with voices and images, his quiet has a different weight. It raises the question, what's he thinking? And in that question lies caution. People are wary of those they can't read because the unpredictable always carries power. Not everyone is grounded enough to choose observation over performance. Because to observe is to accept silence and often being misunderstood. It means having the patience not to react to everything you see. The skilled observer doesn't just notice surfaces, they perceive the structures beneath. They don't just hear what's said, they sense what's withheld. Their presence becomes a mirror placed in the room. And when people look into it, they see themselves often with flaws they tried to mask through performance. Marcus Aurelius once emphasized, "Do your work as if you were watching yourself." That means live as though you need no audience. When you observe yourself rather than seek to impress others, your actions come from inner truth, not external approval. You begin to see clearly when you act for recognition and when you act because it's right. The one who can tell the difference has already begun to step out of the role society cast for them. In Stoicism, there is no room for hollow performance. A true Stoic acts from duty, not for applause. They speak little, don't flaunt results, and don't chase outward glory. They work quietly, observe reactions, refine themselves, and continue onward. They understand. The world may be dazzled by temporary brilliance, but true value doesn't need a voice. It has weight in its silence. When you choose to observe rather than perform, you stay grounded in a world easily swept up by emotion. You don't follow crowds, don't react to trends, don't become a copy of popular models. You observe to understand, not to judge. You stay silent, not because you lack words, but because you know they're not always necessary, and that restraint creates depth. It helps you listen more, analyze better, decide more slowly but more wisely. 6. Don't argue, act. In a world where everyone has something to say, the one who chooses silence and action stands out strangely. Every argument feels important in the moment, but in hindsight, most are just clashes of ego, each person fighting to be right. One seeks respect, another seeks victory, another just wants the last word. But the truth is, arguments rarely lead to change. Someone convinced they're right is rarely open to listen. And those debating to prove something often lack the inner space to truly hear anyone. The wise don't waste energy on needless disputes. They know words can't replace action. No matter how sharp your logic, you can't prove your character through talk. You might silence someone in debate, but that doesn't mean they respect you. The truth is, people might dislike you or oppose you, but they can't ignore your results. And the one whose actions speak clearly, even without a word, always commands attention. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste time debating what a good person should be. Be one." That line is a sober reminder in an age obsessed with debating morality, yet seldom practicing it. No one changes the world by arguing. The ones who do are those who show up, work consistently, keep their promises, make no excuses, and take full responsibility. They don't explain who they are because life explains it for them. Refusing to argue doesn't mean avoiding truth. It means choosing the right time, knowing that truth doesn't need to be defended with excess words. Often, the more you argue, the deeper you're pulled into emotions you never needed to engage with. When someone misrepresents you, attacks you, provokes you, arguing only sets a trap for you to lose your composure. But when you remain calm, doing what's right without needing to prove it, you build a kind of credibility that no defense can match. The Stoic understands. A right action outweighs 1,000 promises. A concrete result dismantles empty slogans. They spend their time shaping character, not crafting clever arguments. Because they know the greatest victory is over themselves, the urge to prove, to win, to seek validation. Once you let go of that need, you free up energy for focus, for meaningful work, and for real growth. Today's world is great at arguing, but it lacks those who work quietly with persistence. Everyone has opinions. Few are willing to labor through difficulty to realize those opinions. Everyone has reasons. Few deliver results. And that's why the person who speaks little but always moves forward is seen as dangerous. Not because they try to impress, but because no one knows what they'll do next or how prepared they already are. At work, the ones who argue most tend to do the least. They spend time persuading others instead of letting results speak. In relationships, those who always need to debate often haven't mastered their emotions. They constantly seek approval, apologies, promises. But the one who's grown beyond that only cares about what truly matters. If the relationship has value, they'll show it through action. If something needs fixing, they'll do something real. No blaming, no complaining, no demanding to be understood. They just move forward. Your silence paired with action says everything that needs saying. And sometimes, one deed changes others more than 100 explanations. So, when you feel the urge to prove something, stop arguing. Act, and let your work speak. That quiet effectiveness, no show, no speech, is what earns lasting respect. And if anything makes you appear dangerous without effort, it's that. 7. Don't let fear show. Fear is a natural part of being human. Everyone is afraid of something, of being hurt, of losing, of rejection, of failure, of not being good enough, of being left behind. But the difference between someone easily broken and someone truly strong isn't who has less fear. It's in how they face it and guard themselves against it. Those who are easily manipulated tend to show their fear, and when you expose your fear, you create a weakness others can exploit. But the dangerous person is the one who knows exactly what they fear and never lets anyone see it. They control their expression, hold their composure, and don't let emotion override behavior. They may tremble inside, but on the outside, they remain calm as if there's nothing worth worrying about. When you let others know what you fear, you unintentionally hand them a kind of power. A single sentence can keep you up at night. A glance can make you hesitate. One rejection can shake your confidence. The one who sees that weakness can manipulate you often without saying a word. They simply recreate a scenario that reminds you of your deepest fear, and you'll react sometimes, overreact, or worse, freeze entirely. And just like that, you fall into defense mode, lose your initiative, and begin to follow without even realizing it. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, if something external can make you suffer, you have granted it power over you. In a deeper sense, this applies not only to suffering, but to fear itself. If you fear something so much that it dictates your behavior, you are a slave to it. A Stoic would never let that happen. They don't deny fear, they observe it, identify it, and then choose not to be controlled by it. They understand that fear doesn't destroy you, but losing control because of fear, that's what leads to ruin. So they stay quiet. They keep their face steady. They walk slowly, steadily, as if there's no reason to panic. In that composure, they protect themselves without walls, without armor. Strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is keeping your dignity even when you tremble inside. This takes not only discipline, but real courage, because you must be brave enough not to escape fear, not to drown it out with noise, crowds, or artificial busyness. You sit with it, listen to it, and then move forward without letting it decide for you. You might still fear rejection, but you speak your truth anyway. You might fear failure, but you act instead of waiting for everything to be perfect. You might fear being hurt, but you don't build false walls to protect a fragile ego. True strength comes from inner steadiness, not outer armor. Someone may speak loudly, move aggressively, act impulsively, but if one critical comment keeps them awake at night, all that toughness is just a mask. On the other hand, a person who never raises their voice, never seeks to impress, but remains composed under pressure, that is someone who is truly strong. And that steadiness doesn't come from having no fear, but from refusing to let fear take the lead. Like a warrior, walking into battle with a calm face, not because he doesn't know he might die, but because he has accepted it and still chooses to move forward. You too. When you live in a world full of uncertainty and remain composed, inspire others and make them cautious. They don't know what drives you. They can't find a weakness to hold on to. They don't know when or even if you'll react. That mystery creates a quiet authority, no shouting, yet others lower their voices in your presence. The one who hides their fear is someone who has outgrown the need for others to protect them. They don't need comfort, don't seek guarantees, don't wait for favorable conditions. They've learned to stand on their own, overcome on their own, and create safety from within, independent of the world outside. They can fail without losing faith. They can hurt without hurting others. They can stand alone without feeling lonely. That self-command, quiet yet deep, is what makes them unconquerable. You don't need to tense up to look tough. You just need to keep others from seeing you shake. And if you can stay calm when everything inside you wants to run, you're not just in control, you're approaching a kind of strength no one can take from you. And that, more than any skill or weapon, is what makes you dangerous in a quiet, undeniable way. I don't believe that becoming dangerous is a life goal everyone should pursue, but I do believe there's a form of danger worth respecting when you are grounded enough not to be manipulated, calm enough not to react impulsively, and self-possessed enough not to let the world define your worth. As we grow up, we are often taught how to please others, how to make a good impression, how to express ourselves. But few teach us how to be silent, how to say no, how not to prove anything. The behaviors labeled as dangerous in this script are not meant to threaten or control anyone. They are meant to protect oneself from the turbulence of life. And when you can do that, you don't need to appear formidable. You become worthy of respect, naturally and enduringly. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this video. If you found value in what was just shared, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss upcoming content. Wishing you the quiet strength to remain grounded and to grow powerful in a way no one can predict. See you in the next video.